Into the record. Senator Kennedy, without objection. And then Senator Padilla.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. With respect to the consultation between the White House and Senator Blackburn and Senator Hagerty about Mr. Mathis's nomination, I am not saying, Mr. Chairman, that the facts as you see them and as you set them forth in your opening statement are inaccurate. The truth is, I don't know. I do know that there is a difference between consultation and good faith consultation, perfunctory consultation and good faith consultation. I am saying that I believe Senator Blackburn and I believe Senator Hagerty when they tell me that the consultation that they received was not meaningful. I'm also suggesting, with respect, Mr. Chairman, this is not only true of the President Biden's administration, but any administration for that matter. It makes no sense to me why the executive branch wants to lead with its chin and not meaningfully consider the opinion of the home state senators. By not doing that, you automatically start out 2 votes down, and that makes no sense to me. And I would like to, I wanted to make my feelings known and clear for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to make a statement prior to voting. I do also want to briefly comment on Mr. Mathis's confirmation process. I'm proud to support Mr. Mathis's nomination to the Sixth Circuit. His record shows clearly that he's well prepared to take on the role and that he will faithfully apply the Constitution as a federal appellate judge. Mr. Chairman, I support the use of our confirmation hearings to ask important questions about the backgrounds, the views, and the qualifications of judicial nominees who are about to take arguably some of the most important offices in the country. Senators should do our part in that advice and consent process. But I have to say that I was particularly troubled by some of the treatment that Mr. Mathis was subjected to during the hearing. During the hearing, Mr. Mathis was asked to answer for his quote-unquote rap sheet with a quote-unquote laundry list of citations. So let's be clear. Mr. Mathis is not a career criminal or violent felon, as the question implied. He has never been arrested or convicted of a crime. The underlying issue being commented on was traffic violations dating over a decade ago. Whether it was unintentional or intentional, questions and tones, like what I heard during his hearing, are demeaning, offensive, and just plain wrong. These attacks also undermine public confidence in the judiciary and sometimes can incite harassment against the nominees who appear before us. And Mr. Mathis, unfortunately, isn't the only nominee to receive this kind of treatment. It's not lost on me that nominees of color that have been treated differently in our hearings, whether it's insinuations of a rap sheet or hostility about their qualifications or views or undue scrutiny of their personal religious faith. Now, I'm not saying it's been every nominee, and I'm not saying it's been every member of this committee, but I want to take this moment to ask all of my colleagues to please, let's just be cognizant of this disparity. The Senate Judiciary Committee has made remarkable progress by many measures this past year, including confirming a historically diverse group of nominees. And I thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank Ranking Member Grassley for leading us in that effort. And I'm thankful to my colleagues who have recommended such a diverse group of qualified and more than qualified individuals for federal judgeship. I'm grateful for Senator Graham and others who have already spoken up in support of building a more diverse judiciary that better reflects the nation that it serves all the way to the Supreme Court. And I hope that we keep up that effort today and going forward. We should be mindful of our word choice out of respect for the nominees who come before us and the world that's watching. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. And let me just add as a footnote, one of our recent nominees who appeared before this committee faced tough questioning, and whether it went too far will be someone else's judgment. And then one of our members of our committee tweeted in reference to the question and answer. The net result of it was threats to the family of this nominee. I don't think any of us want to see that happen. I would join in Senator Padilla's request that we be respectful and still discharge our duties within the committee. Is there anyone else seeking recognition on Andre Mathis' nomination? Senator Lee.
I want to echo the concerns that have been raised by several members of the committee as to the process. I share those concerns and share concerns on the merits of the nomination. I'm deeply sympathetic to the idea that obviously everyone needs to be careful about their comments and not inciting other people to carry out disrespectful and potentially harmful actions in response to someone. And to that very end, the need to be respectful applies also with respect to colleagues. Comments made a moment ago by a member of our committee, I hope I misunderstood them, to the extent he was suggesting racial bias on the part of members of this committee. I know that to be grossly inaccurate, extraordinarily unfair, and also of the very sort of comment that would incite people to anger, acts of retaliation, and violence. Look, collegiality requires better than that. I hope I misunderstood the comments of our colleague. Either way, to accuse colleagues who disagree with you of racism is a very serious thing.
Anyone else seek recognition? Senator Hawley.
I had not intended to speak, Mr. Chairman, but I have to agree with Senator Lee. I mean, to accuse members of this committee of racism because you disagree with them on substance, I think it is a very serious thing. And frankly, I'm startled to hear it. And I hope that I also misunderstood. But I know that that's common practice in the media. I know that it's become a common campaign tactic. I know it's become a common political tactic. But frankly, it's reprehensible, and I think it's wrong. And I think it is highly destructive of any efforts of bipartisanship and consensus building. And I just have to say I'm deeply disappointed by it.
Mr. Chairman, just really quickly.
Senator Booker.
Yeah, I've heard the comments of folks, and I really understand them. I actually have a deep empathy for people who weren't consulted about their home state senator, their home senators not being consulted on a circuit court judge. And I just offer to my colleagues, many of whom are friends, to have a constructive conversation, because the exact same thing was happened to Senator Menendez and I. Stunning, in fact, because we asked for meetings, we asked for consultation, we offered up other judges. And so I think it's wrong. I think the turn we took with circuit judges under the Trump administration was a wrong turn for this committee. I don't know how you put the toothpaste back in the tube, but we've seen this erosion of norms within this committee and within the United States Senate, and I know that there are good faith folks on the other side who are concerned about this, and I just offer conversations, because this will continue as we continue to slingshot back and forth between chairmanships of this committee and presidents in the White House. And it's unfortunate that this norm has now slipped through our fingers. I don't know how to get it back, but I'd love to have a conversation with my colleagues on it.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cornyn.
Mr. Chairman, let me join Senator Blackburn and Senator Hagerty in protesting the lack of consultation and communication on circuit court nominees. My understanding was during the previous administration and with under Chairman Grassley that no senator was provided the opportunity to veto a nominee by the president to a circuit court. But there was aggressive attempts at consultation, which were by and large very successful, to hear the concerns of the home state senators and to talk about it and give them a sense that they were being included as opposed to being given the Heisman when it came to these nominations. And I just suggest that a little bit of comity and consultation will go a long way to improving the atmosphere and the judicial confirmation process, which have become famously embittered over time, particularly at the Supreme Court level, but also creeping now into the circuit court nominees. My understanding is the chairman continues to honor the blue slip for district court judges, which means that any home state senator can effectively block a nominee to the federal district court by the Biden administration, should they choose to do so, by not returning their blue slip. The practice, of course, as I said, under the previous administration and previous chairman, was that that did not extend to circuit court nominees. And I understand that, and I would expect there to be reciprocity. But let the record be clear, there were aggressive attempts at consultation and communication with Democratic senators under the previous Republican administration when it came to circuit court nominees. The fact that they were unsuccessful in persuading the administration not to nominate somebody is not the equivalent of not consulting and not communicating. And I understand, well, maybe the attitude is we don't have to and you can't make us. But I think that poisons the well when it comes to the sort of dignified and civil process that I would hope that we would aspire to here. Certainly we failed on many occasions to achieve that, but I think that ought to be our collective aspiration. And particularly when we have a 50-50 Senate and the lack of consultation with Senator Blackburn and Senator Hagerty on this circuit court nominee, this is not going to be the final word here in the committee. We all hope for Senator Lujan's quick return to the Senate. We wish him well, hope him a speedy recovery. But it demonstrates the fragility of a 50-50 Senate. And if you're Andre Mathis, who I've heard good things about from some of our former colleagues, if his nomination fails because the White House has poisoned the well with senators and basically guaranteed a reflexive opposition to his nomination because of a lack of consultation and communication, I think that's unfair to Mr. Mathis too, and it's unfair to any future nominees. So I think there's a lot of incentive for us to try to treat each other with reciprocity. And I just want to correct what I understand the record to be, is that there, under Chairman Grassley, there was always, and Chairman Graham, always communication and consultation when it came to circuit court nominees, and certainly under Senator Leahy when he was chairman as well. So I just think that ought to be the standard we aspire to, because I think our failure to reach that, to achieve that aspiration, I think will have concrete and negative consequences going forward. Thank you.
If I can just do a quick response for the record, forgive me, Chairman, especially because he mentioned the Heisman, and as the only senator here, I think, that was given a Heisman trophy to hold for a few minutes before I had to give it back. I just want to correct for the record.
We were going to do a fact check.
I just want to correct for the record. I was not given by the last administration the courtesy that was given to Senator Blackburn. I beseeched them to let me meet with their candidate before the hearing here or before the committee vote, and we were denied that opportunity. We did eventually get to meet with him before the floor vote, but we felt continually through the process, we made appeals, and those were not honored. I'm not here to go back and forth on those facts. I'm simply here to say I agree with you, Senator Cornyn, about what I consider just a simple courtesy for us to do our constitutional duty of advising and consenting. And I'm very frustrated about how we were treated, and I do agree with you what the standard should be.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to hear that the senator doesn't feel like he was consulted or treated with that standard that we've said we should all aspire to. And but I have no knowledge of the circumstances. I'll just have to rely on your statement. But again, that doesn't change the fact that if there is no consultation and no communication with home state senators, what incentive do they have to cooperate with and support a nomination? And I would hope the Biden administration would see some wisdom in trying to eliminate sort of reflexive opposition because of a process foul, and would try to encourage all of us to aspire to the goal that I share with Senator Booker in terms of consultation and communication. Thank you.
Now we have requests from Senator Whitehouse and Leahy. Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. The experience of members of this committee has been stated by the members of the committee as to the extent of Trump administration consultation regarding circuit court judges. And I think we should heed those statements of fact by our fellow members. We can litigate endlessly the sincerity of consultation between the White House and members, whether it's for real or whether it's for show. It's very hard for us to police that. If we had blue slips, that would not be a problem. We are living today with the consequences of getting rid of the blue slip for circuit court nominees. I got to say, I warned about this over and over and over again and urged my colleagues not to do this. I said, I really think you ought to think long and hard about this, because once you tear down a tradition like this, it's really hard to rebuild it. I warned about its effect on the members who have commissions that make recommendations to them for courts, often bipartisan ones. With this vote, this committee has just killed the blue slip for circuit court nominees. We shot a torpedo into the very often bipartisan selection committee process that a great many senators have agreed to in their home states. And then, in response to what happened in California, I pointed out that not only do we not have any voice over who gets appointed to the circuit court associated with our state, we don't even have the power to assure that it's somebody associated with our state. We have senators on this committee who believed that the appointee had no credible association with their state. And I warned actually about, I think it probably had Senator Kennedy in my eyesight, and I mentioned about, appointing a nice Brooklyn judge to a Louisiana seat. We've lost something very important when we undid the blue slip. To Senator Booker's point, I don't know how you put the toothpaste back in the tube. I'm eager to help find a way, but I will tell you what that way cannot be. It cannot be that when there's a Democratic president, everybody gets a blue slip, and it can be used to block circuit court nominees. And where there's a Republican president, the Federalist Society cranks up its turnstile, big donors choose the nominees, and everybody lines up and shoves them through irrespective of qualifications or blue slips. That's how it happened in the last administration, and we can't have a back and forth. Whatever our solution it is, has to be something that will stick. And let me just say, with regard to the Federalist Society judicial selection turnstile, if you look at Judge Barrett when she went onto the circuit, if you look at other judges, I had a list in front of me and I've mislaid it. Here it is. If you add up Judge Walker, Judge Rao, and Judge Barrett, their experience when they were put onto circuit courts, as a sum number, it is less than the experience of the judge we're debating today. So the debate over whether he has enough experience is a wondrous thing to me, having watched those three judges dialed through the Federalist Society turnstile and onto circuit courts with far, 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 far less experience than this judge exhibits. So we are in a bad place on this, and I'd like to get out of it, but let me just put those guardrails down. It cannot be that the way we get out of this is that there are blue slips when there's a Democratic president, and it's Federalist Society turnstile with no blue slips when it's a Republican president. Thank you.
Leahy?
Mr. Chairman, I hesitate to speak on some of these things from an historical point of view, but you have two senators who have different philosophies, Senator Cornyn and Senator Whitehouse, and I say that respectfully, but I would say that we should listen to what both Senator Cornyn and Senator Whitehouse said. I worry about what is happening as the traditions break down, and the Senator Whitehouse absolutely right. You can't have one for a Democratic president, different one for a Republican president. I was chairman with both Democratic and Republican presidents. And I believe everybody agreed that I established the same positions during that time, and things went better. I think I would note that I have voted for more Republican nominees to the federal court, district, appellate, and Supreme Court than virtually every Republican member of this committee. And I've also voted against ones I felt should not be there. But you ought to be in a position where you can, when it's your home state, you should have a lot of say what goes in, or at least consultation. District courts, it's usually pretty well done, U.S. attorneys, things like that. But I worry that in the last administration, so much of the traditions that Republicans and Democrats have relied upon fell apart. I think Senator Cornyn is right in saying that we have to have this committee. Senator Whitehouse is right. And I worry, I mean, I will not be here to see what happens, but I worry about the polarization that goes on. I worry about the charges made against some nominees, which seem to be, in some cases, thinly veiled charges because they're a woman or a person of color. I think we've got to get back, as the Judiciary Committee, Republicans and Democrats alike, showing we care about who's in a federal judiciary. I tried a lot of cases before federal courts, both trial courts and courts of appeals. I never once looked at a court and had to think, well, this judge is, going to take a different view toward me because I was a Democrat, either for or against me. Back at that time, they were virtually all Republican nominees because that's all we'd ever had from Vermont. But I knew I'd be treated fairly. I worry that if we set standards that get too polarized, the credibility of our federal courts suffers. The credibility of our Supreme Court is already suffering. We see it in the polls. And if people think our federal courts are unnecessarily politicized, this country faces real difficulty. With that, I'll yield.
Thanks, Senator Leahy. We've taken the first hour of the committee on this, but I think it's important that this dialogue take place. I'll just say for the record, I think Senator Whitehouse has identified the dilemma. We're certainly not going to wave a white flag and change the blue slip rule as to circuit nominees since we have a Democratic president, but I will insist that this administration consult with members of the Republican side in the appropriate cases involving states where there are Republican senators. I do believe that it happened in this case with Mr. Mathis, and there'll just be a difference of opinion with myself and the senator from Tennessee, whom I like a lot. I think she's a good member of this committee, and I count her as a friend. So if nothing further is to be added, I'm going to ask that on favorably reporting the nomination of Andre Mathis to be U.S. Circuit Judge for the Sixth Circuit. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Leahy. Aye. Mrs. Feinstein. Aye. Mr. Whitehouse. Aye. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Coons. Aye. Mr. Blumenthal. Aye. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Padilla.
Aye.
Mr. Ossoff.
Aye.
Mr. Grassley.
No.
Mr. Graham.
No by proxy.
Mr. Cornyn.
No.
Mr. Lee.
No.
Mr. Cruz.
No by proxy.
Mr. Sass.
No by proxy.
Mr. Hawley. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kennedy. Aye. Mr. Tillis.
No by proxy.
Mrs. Blackburn. Chair Durbin.
Aye.
Chair Durbin, the votes are 12 yeas, 10 nays.
The nomination will be favorably reported to the floor, and now the nomination of Jessica Clark to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. Does anyone seek recognition? If not, on favorably reporting the nomination of Jessica G.L. Clark to be U.S. District Judge for the Southern District of New York, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Leahy.
Aye.
Mrs. Feinstein. Aye. Mr. Whitehouse. Aye. Ms. Klobuchar. Aye. Mr. Coons. Aye. Mr. Blumenthal. Aye. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Padilla.
Aye.
Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Grassley.
No.
Mr. Graham.
No by proxy.
Mr. Cornyn.
No by proxy.
Mr. Lee.
No.
Mr. Cruz.
No by proxy.
Mr. Sass.
No by proxy.
Mr. Hawley. No. Mr. Cotton. No. Mr. Kennedy. No. Mr. Tillis.
No by proxy.
Mrs. Blackburn. Chair Durbin.
Aye.